blood money. The first thing you need to understand about my family is that we've never been good at loving each other. We're excellent at needing each other, at using each other, at destroying each other with surgical precision, but love? That's always been in short supply in the Kane household. Before we pull back the curtain further on this saga, tell me, where are you watching from? And if you crave more tales of those who refuse to be outsmarted, please hit that like button and subscribe. Also, don't forget to ring the bell. The second thing you need to understand is that my father, Vincent Kane, was a monster who wore expensive suits and donated to children's charities. He built his fortune in real estate development, which is a polite way of saying he bulldozed poor neighborhoods and erected glass towers where families used to live. He was methodical, calculating, and utterly without mercy when it came to getting what he wanted. The third thing, and this is important, is that I used to think I was different from him. I was wrong. The call came on a rain-soaked Thursday in November. I was in my cramped apartment in Portland, grading papers for the community college where I taught English composition to kids who reminded me of myself at 18, angry, broke, and convinced the world owed them something better. Ethan? My sister Lily's voice was thick with what sounded like grief, but I'd learned not to trust Lily's emotions years ago. She was an actress after all, though not a very successful one. Dad's dead. I set down my red pen and stared at the rain streaking down my window. Vincent Kane, 58 years old, apparently had a massive heart attack while reviewing contracts in his home office. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who'd spent decades stopping other people's hearts had finally had his own give out. "When's the funeral?" I asked, because that's what you're supposed to ask. "Saturday. Can you make it back to Seattle?" Could I? Barely. I had maybe $300 to my name and a 15-year-old Honda that needed prayer more than gasoline to make the 5-hour drive. But Vincent Kane was my father, and despite everything, I owed him that much. I'll be there. The funeral was a masterpiece of hypocrisy. Half of Seattle's elite showed up to pay their respects to a man they'd feared, and the other half came to make sure he was actually dead. I sat in the back row of the cathedral wearing my only suit, a thrift store special that had seen better decades, and watched my family perform grief for the cameras. Lily, stunning in her black Versace dress, dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief at precisely the right moments. At 29, she had our father's sharp cheekbones and our mother's green eyes, and she knew how to use both to devastating effect. She'd inherited Vincent's talent for manipulation but lacked his patience. Where he would spend months setting up a scheme, Lily wanted immediate gratification. My younger brother Marcus sat beside her, his pregnant wife Sarah clutching his arm like she was afraid he might bolt. Marcus was 26, a surgical resident at Seattle General and the only one of us who'd ever made Vincent genuinely proud. He had our father's analytical mind and steady hands, but he'd always been weak. Vincent used to say Marcus had soft spots, empathy, guilt, the inconvenient habit of caring about people who couldn't benefit him. Then there was Celeste, Vincent's wife of 8 years and barely older than Lily. She sat in the front row, playing the grieving widow with impressive dedication. Celeste was a former pharmaceutical sales rep who'd caught Vincent's eye during a business meeting and never let go. She was smart, beautiful, and absolutely ruthless. In another era, she would have been a black widow spider. In ours, she was a real estate heiress. After the service, we gathered at the family estate for what Celeste called a celebration of Vincent's life, which was really just an excuse for Seattle's power brokers to network over expensive whiskey and imported cheese. I stayed long enough to be polite, then retreated to my childhood bedroom, which Celeste had converted into a guest room but hadn't bothered to redecorate. The walls still held faded posters of bands I'd loved at 16, back when I thought rebellion meant wearing black and writing terrible poetry. I was packing my duffel bag when Marcus knocked on the door. He said, and I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. Marcus had always carried the weight of being Vincent's favorite, and it had aged him prematurely. At 26, he already had gray threading through his dark hair. About what? The will reading is tomorrow. Celeste's lawyer wants all of us there. I'm sure Dad left everything to Celeste. Why waste my time? Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, his shoulders sagging. "Ethan, I know we haven't been close since Mom died, but we're still brothers. Whatever happens tomorrow, we need to stick together." Our mother, Catherine, had died when I was 19, officially from complications of pneumonia, though anyone with eyes could see she'd been drinking herself to death for years. Vincent's affairs had been an open secret, and Catherine had drowned her humiliation in gin and Valium until her liver gave up the fight. Brothers. Right. When was the last time you called me, Marcus? When was the last time any of you gave a damn whether I was alive or dead? His face flushed. You left. You moved to Portland and cut us all off. I left because staying would have killed me. This family is poison, Marcus. Dad was poison, and you all enabled him because it was easier than standing up to him. He wasn't that bad. He drove Mom to suicide. He destroyed every person who ever trusted him. He built his fortune on other people's misery. But sure, let's pretend he was just misunderstood. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Come to the will reading, Ethan, please. I have a feeling. I think Dad might have surprises for all of us. The next morning, we assembled in the conference room of Whitmore, Sterling and Associates, Vincent's law firm for over 2 decades. The room smelled like leather and old money, with dark wood paneling that seemed to absorb light. Gerald Whitmore, a silver-haired man who'd been Vincent's friend since college, sat at the head of the mahogany table with a thick folder in front of him. We took our seats like players in a poker game, Celeste across from me, her perfectly manicured fingers drumming against the table, Lily checking her phone every 30 seconds, Marcus staring at his hands, and me, wondering why I'd bothered to come. Before we begin, I want you all to know that Vincent was very specific about his wishes. He spent considerable time planning this distribution, and he insisted that I read the entire document aloud, regardless of your reactions. He opened the folder and began reading in his measured lawyer's voice. The first part was standard: small bequests to various charities, his art collection to the Seattle Museum, his vintage Rolex collection to Marcus. Then he got to the interesting part. To my wife, Celeste Marie Kane, who has been a devoted companion in my final years, I leave our primary residence and all its contents, along with a trust fund of $500,000, to be dispersed over 10 years in equal annual installments. Celeste's face went white. $500,000 was a fortune to most people, but it was barely enough to maintain the estate for 2 years. She'd obviously been expecting millions. To my daughter, Lily Catherine Kane, I leave the sum of $200,000 with the condition that she use these funds to pursue a career outside of acting within 1 year of my death. If she continues to pursue acting, this bequest will be donated to charity. Lily's mouth fell open. Vincent had always supported her acting career, or at least pretended to. This felt like a posthumous slap in the face. To my son, Dr. Marcus Vincent Kane, I leave my business holdings and real estate portfolio, valued at approximately $3.2 million, with the stipulation that he resign from his medical practice within 6 months and take over active management of Kane Development. Marcus looked like he might be sick. He'd spent years in medical school, was finally doing his residency in neurosurgery, his dream job. Vincent was asking him to throw it all away. Whitmore paused, looking directly at me. And finally, to my eldest son, Ethan Michael Kane, who has shown the greatest independence and strength of character, I leave the remainder of my estate, including liquid assets and investment accounts, totaling approximately $4.7 million. The room erupted. Lily started screaming about how unfair it was. Marcus just sat there in stunned silence. Celeste was calculating something behind her eyes, probably already planning her next move. But Whitmore wasn't finished. However, this inheritance comes with conditions. Ethan must use these funds to establish a family trust that will provide for his siblings and stepmother's needs over the next 10 years. He has complete discretion over how these funds are distributed, but he must provide reasonable support for family members who comply with the terms of their individual bequests. I stared at the lawyer, my mind reeling. Vincent had just made me the family's banker, with the power to approve or deny everyone else's financial needs. It was brilliant and cruel in equal measure, exactly the sort of psychological warfare he'd specialized in. There's one more thing. Vincent asked me to give this to Ethan privately after the will reading. An hour later, after Lily had stormed out and Celeste had retreated to make phone calls, I sat alone in Whitmore's office and opened the envelope. Vincent's handwriting was as precise as I remembered. Ethan, if you're reading this, then my final game has begun. You always were the smartest of my children, the one most likely to see through the masks people wear. I know you hate me, and you have good reasons, but I also know you're more like me than you want to admit. Your siblings and Celeste will come to you now, asking for money. They'll have sob stories, emergencies, desperate needs that only you can solve. Some of their stories might even be true. But remember, I didn't give you this money to be generous. I gave it to you to be smart, trust no one, question everything. And when the time comes to choose between being loved and being respected, choose respect. Love fades, but fear lasts forever. Your loving father, Vincent. P.S. Check the safe deposit box at First National. The key is taped under the drawer of my desk at home. You'll find some interesting reading about your family's recent activities. I drove straight to the bank. The safe deposit box contained a thick folder marked insurance and a smaller envelope labeled for Ethan's eyes only. I took both and sat in my hotel room trying to process what I was about to learn. The folder was devastating. Vincent had been collecting information on all of us for years, like some kind of domestic intelligence operation. Lily's file was thick with financial records showing mounting debt, credit cards maxed out, loans from shady investors, unpaid rent on her Los Angeles apartment, but worse were the photographs. Lily in various compromises with married directors and producers, playing the casting couch game with ruthless efficiency. Vincent had documented every affair, every transaction, every moral compromise she'd made in pursuit of stardom. Marcus's file was smaller but more damaging. Medical records showed Sarah had suffered 3 miscarriages before their current pregnancy, and each time, Marcus had prescribed himself increasingly powerful painkillers to cope with the grief. He was functionally addicted to OxyContin, managing to hide it from everyone except Vincent, who'd been documenting his son's prescription fraud for months. Celeste's file was the thickest of all. Vincent had hired private investigators to follow his wife, and the results were staggering. She'd been systematically looting his accounts for 2 years, transferring money to offshore holdings in preparation for his death. But that wasn't the worst part. Vincent's medical records showed he'd been in perfect health, until Celeste started helping with his heart medication. Toxicology reports suggested she'd been slowly poisoning him with digitalis, mimicking the symptoms of heart disease while gradually weakening his actual heart. My wife had murdered my father. The smaller envelope contained a letter and a flash drive. Ethan, if you've read the files, you now understand what you're dealing with. Celeste killed me, though she'll never be prosecuted. I made sure the evidence would be inadmissible in court. Consider it my final gift to her, and to you. You have a choice now. You can destroy this information and live with the knowledge, or you can use it. I recommend the latter. The flash drive contains additional material. Video recordings from hidden cameras I installed throughout the house, audio recordings from phones I had tapped, financial records showing the full scope of your family's various betrayals. You're holding enough ammunition to destroy them all. The question is, are you Vincent Kane's son, or are you still pretending to be a good man? Choose wisely, Vincent. I sat in that hotel room until dawn, watching the rain streak down the windows and trying to decide what kind of person I wanted to be. By morning I had my answer. I called Marcus first. We need to talk, all of us, tonight at the estate. They gathered in Vincent's study like suspects in an Agatha Christie novel. Celeste had already started redecorating, removing Vincent's golf trophies and replacing them with her own artwork. Lily wore designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than I made in a month. Marcus looked exhausted, probably withdrawing from his latest pill binge. I've been thinking about Dad's will, about what he really wanted. What are those? Celeste's eyes flicked to the files. Insurance policies, background checks, the kind of thing Dad collected on everyone in his life. Did you know Dad knew about your arrangement with Harvey Weinstein's assistant Lily? He documented every transaction. Lily's face went ashen. How did he? Hidden cameras, phone taps, private investigators. Dad was very thorough. He also knew about your prescription problem, Marcus. He has medical records showing you've been forging prescriptions for months. Marcus sank into a chair, his hands shaking. Ethan, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. Sarah's miscarriages broke you and you started self-medicating. It happens to a lot of doctors, but you've been stealing drugs from the hospital, haven't you? Selling them to pay for your habit? The silence stretched until Celeste spoke up. What do you want, Ethan? I smiled. And for the first time in my life, I understood why Vincent had always found power so intoxicating. I want honesty. I want you to tell me the truth about what you've been doing, and then we can discuss your allowances from the family trust. Over the next hour, they confessed everything. Lily admitted to prostituting herself for acting roles, racking up enormous debts in the process. Marcus broke down completely, sobbing as he described stealing pharmaceuticals and selling them to other addicted medical professionals. But Celeste tried to lie until I played the audio recording of her on the phone with her offshore banker, discussing how to access Vincent's accounts after his inevitable cardiac event. You killed him. You've been poisoning him for months. She didn't deny it, just stared at me with those cold blue eyes. Prove it. I don't have to prove it. I just have to decide whether you get any money from the trust. That's when her mask finally slipped. You self-righteous piece of shit. You think you're better than us? You're just like Vincent. You get off on controlling people. Maybe I am, but I'm not a murderer. I established the trust the next week, but not the way they expected. Instead of providing comfortable allowances, I created a system of rewards and punishments based on their behavior. Lily got enough money to survive, but only if she attended acting classes at community colleges rather than pursuing Hollywood roles. Every month, she had to provide proof of attendance and satisfactory grades to receive her payment. Marcus received enough to cover his basic living expenses and Sarah's medical bills, but only after completing a drug rehabilitation program and submitting to monthly drug tests. I also required him to work at free clinics, using his medical skills to help people who couldn't afford proper health care. Celeste got the least, just enough to maintain the estate's basic utilities and property taxes with no allowance for her personal expenses. Every request for additional funds had to be approved by me personally, and I made sure those meetings were as humiliating as possible. But the real punishment was psychological. I moved back to Seattle and took an apartment near the estate, close enough to monitor their compliance with my rules. I started showing up to their homes unannounced, checking on their activities, reminding them that their comfortable lives depended entirely on my goodwill. Within 6 months, I could see the effect. Lily aged years in weeks, the stress of financial uncertainty eating away at her beauty. Marcus developed a nervous tic, constantly checking his phone for messages from me. Sarah barely spoke to anyone anymore, terrified that something she said might cost them their monthly payment. Celeste tried to fight back at first, threatening to go to the police with the evidence of Vincent's surveillance. But I reminded her that doing so would also expose her own crimes, and she had much more to lose than I did. The darkest part was how much I enjoyed it. Every month when I approved their payments, I felt the same rush of power that Vincent must have felt when he crushed his business rivals. I understood now why he'd been so addicted to control. It was intoxicating. A year after Vincent's death, Lily came to my apartment crying. She'd been cast in a legitimate theater production, her first real acting job in years. But accepting it would violate the terms of her trust payments. Please, Ethan, this could be my break. I've been clean for 8 months. I've been going to classes like you wanted. Let me take this job. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. The expensive clothes were gone, replaced by thrift store finds. Her hair was growing out from the bleached blonde to its natural brown. She looked tired, but also healthier than she had in years. Why should I? Because I'm your sister. Because you love me. But that's when I realized the truth. I didn't love her. I didn't love any of them. I'd spent so long being angry about their betrayals, so focused on punishing their crimes, that I'd forgotten how to feel anything else. I was Vincent Kane's son after all. No. The terms of the trust are clear. You can act, or you can eat. Choose. She left without another word. 2 weeks later, Marcus called to tell me she'd taken the role anyway. I cut off her payments immediately. Lily lasted 3 months before the creditors found her. The theater production folded after 2 weeks and she couldn't afford her apartment without the trust money. She tried calling me, sending letters, even showing up at my office. But I'd learned Vincent's most important lesson. Once you establish a boundary, you never compromise. She ended up homeless, sleeping in her car, then in shelters. Marcus tried to help her, but I reminded him that violating the trust's terms would result in his own payments being suspended. He chose his wife and unborn child over his sister. The last time I saw Lily was 6 months ago, outside a downtown clinic where Marcus was doing his required volunteer work. She looked like a different person, hollow-eyed, gaunt, aged beyond her years. She saw me through the window and tried to approach, but security turned her away. Marcus saw the whole thing. That night he called me. "She's dying, Ethan. Whatever you think she did to deserve this, she's paid for it." Has she? She's a prostitute and a drug addict who spent years manipulating our father for money. Seems to me she's getting exactly what she earned. She's our sister. She was our sister. Now she's a cautionary tale. Marcus was quiet for a long time. What happened to you? It was a fair question. What had happened to the idealistic English teacher who'd wanted to help kids escape their circumstances? When had I become someone who could watch his own sister destroy herself and feel nothing but satisfaction? I grew up. I learned what family really means. Marcus hung up, and we haven't spoken since. Last month I got a call from the coroner's office. They'd found Lily in an abandoned building downtown, dead from a heroin overdose. She'd been carrying my business card in her wallet, which is how they'd tracked me down. I arranged for a simple funeral, paid for by the trust. Marcus and Sarah came, along with a few people I didn't recognize. Probably friends from the theater, or fellow addicts, or other broken people she'd collected during her final months. Celeste didn't attend. She'd moved to a smaller apartment across town, unable to maintain the estate on her minimal allowance. I heard from neighbors that she'd started working as a receptionist at a dental office, her first real job in over a decade. Standing at Lily's graveside, watching them lower my sister into the ground, I waited to feel something. Grief, regret, even relief. But there was nothing, just a cold calculation about how her death would affect the trust's finances. That's when I realized Vincent's final victory. He hadn't just given me his money, he'd given me his soul. Or maybe he'd simply revealed the soul I'd always had. The family is broken now, scattered and diminished. Marcus barely practices medicine anymore, spending most of his time at free clinics because he's afraid to leave his required volunteer work. Sarah had their baby, a daughter they named Catherine after our mother, but they're both too damaged to be proper parents. The child will probably grow up in the same toxic atmosphere that created us. Celeste continues to dwindle away in her small apartment, applying for jobs she's overqualified for, and struggling to survive on her pittance from the trust. Sometimes I see her at the grocery store, comparing prices and calculating whether she can afford name-brand cereal. She always looks away when she sees me. I could change all of this tomorrow. I could dissolve the trust, distribute the remaining money equally, and try to rebuild some semblance of family relationships. I could use Vincent's fortune to heal the wounds he created, but I won't. Because the truth is, I like being Vincent Kane's son. I like the power, the control, the way people fear me. I like knowing that every comfortable moment in my family's life depends on my continued goodwill, and maybe that makes me a monster. Maybe I'm exactly as poisonous as the man who raised me, but at least I'm honest about it. Vincent would be proud. Have you ever had to forge a new beginning after being wronged or neglected? How did you navigate your path forward? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this narrative resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more insights on building resilience and rediscovering purpose. Thank you for being a part of this journey.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take complex stories, unpack them, and basically give you the insights you need to be truly informed. Today we're diving into, well, it's quite a saga. It's about family, immense wealth, betrayal, drawn from a source titled Blood Money, the Kane family's poisonous legacy. Our goal here is to really get into the dark side inheritance, the true cost of control and how a family legacy can just fundamentally change who someone is. We're following Ethan Kane, he's the narrator, as he deals with the fallout from his powerful father's death and this really twisted game he's forced into.
Yeah, what's fascinating here, I think, is how this deep dive shows those really tangled, often destructive family dynamics, especially with big money and secrets involved. It's not just about what happened, but why it matters for understanding power, consequences, all that psychological stuff.
Okay, let's get into it. The source sets the stage right away, describing the Kanes. Excellent at needing each other, at using each other, at destroying each other with surgical precision, but love. That's always been in short supply.
Wow. That really says it all, doesn't it? It's like the family's mission statement.
Exactly. And at the center of this toxic web, is Vincent Kane, the patriarch. His son, Ethan, is blunt, calls him a monster who wore expensive suits and donated to children's charities.
Quite the description.
Right? Vincent made his fortune in real estate development, but it wasn't exactly ethical. Ethan says he bulldozed poor neighborhoods and erected glass towers. Methodical, calculating.
Utterly without mercy. That's the phrase used. It speaks volumes about his character and really the foundation of this poisonous legacy you mentioned.
And Ethan believed, or maybe wanted to believe, he was different. I used to think I was different from him, he says. That's the core conflict, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's this central struggle. Can you escape your own blood, your upbringing, especially when it's soaked in this kind of darkness?
That whole question just explodes when Vincent dies. He has a massive heart attack at 58. While reviewing contracts, ironically enough.
The irony is thick there. The man who metaphorically stopped hearts, his own, gives out. Grim.
So Ethan gets the call. He's in Portland, teaching English, living in a cramped apartment, described as angry, broke. He makes the 5-hour drive back to Seattle.
And the funeral. Ethan calls it a masterpiece of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
All of Seattle's elite are there, putting on a show.
Performing grief, yeah. While Ethan's in the back, in a thrift store suit, just watching this whole performance, it really highlights that gap between public image and private reality.
And that performance extends to the rest of the family, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. You've got Lily, the 29-year-old daughter, an actress, stunning apparently, but manipulative like her father, just maybe less patient, wanted that immediate gratification.
Then there's Marcus, the younger son, 26, a surgical resident, supposedly Vincent's favorite.
Right. He had the analytical mind, the steady hands his father admired, but also empathy, guilt, things Vincent saw as weaknesses, soft spots, he called them.
Vulnerabilities in that world, for sure. And Celeste, the wife.
Vincent's wife of 8 years, Celeste, barely older than Lily, actually, former pharma sales rep, described as smart, beautiful, and absolutely ruthless.
Ethan calls her a black widow spider, I believe.
He does, suggesting she climbed her way into the fortune, and looming over all of them is the memory of their mother, Catherine.
She died young, officially from pneumonia complications, but
the source says anyone with eyes could see she'd been drinking herself to death for years because of Vincent's affairs. It's just layers of damage, generational pain.
So all these characters, with their masks and their flaws, they gather for the will reading.
Law firm, Whitmore, Sterling and Associates. Gerald Whitmore reads the will. And it's specific, very specific. This is where Vincent's final game really kicks off.
And it's less about inheritance, more about control, right? Weaponizing the money.
Exactly. Celeste, the wife. She gets the main house, the contents, sure, but only a $500,000 trust fund paid out over 10 years.
Which sounds like a lot, but...
The source says it's barely enough to maintain the estate for 2 years. Her face apparently went white. It's a cage, not freedom.
And Lily, the actress.
She gets $200,000. But, and this is the kicker, there's a condition. She has to quit acting within a year, pursue something else, or the money goes to charity.
Wow. A posthumous slap in the face, as the source puts it. Just cruel, designed to break her spirit.
Then Marcus, the favorite son. He gets the business holdings, the real estate, valued around $3.2 million. Sounds great, right?
But there's a catch, I assume.
Oh, yeah. He has to quit his surgical residency, his dream job within 6 months, and take over Kane Development. Basically choose passion or money. Vincent's forcing his hand.
So Vincent's is essentially dismantling their lives piece by piece. What about Ethan? The one who thought he was different.
Ethan gets the rest. Liquid assets, investments, totaling about $4.7 million. The reason given, for showing the greatest independence and strength of character.
Okay, so he gets the most. Seems almost fair.
But here's the twist, the real twist. His inheritance has conditions too. Huge ones. He must use the money to set up a family trust, to provide for Lily, Marcus, and Celeste for the next 10 years.
So he doesn't actually get the money for himself.
Not directly, he gets complete discretion over the trust, but he has to provide reasonable support if they meet their conditions.
Oh, I see. So Vincent didn't just leave money. He built a system, a control system, with Ethan now holding all the levers.
Precisely. Ethan instantly becomes the family banker, the warden, the judge, holding everyone's future in his hands.
As Ethan himself says, it was brilliant and cruel in equal measure, exactly the sort of psychological warfare he'd specialized in.
And it was clear this was just the opening move.
Which leads us to the letter, right? Vincent's final message to Ethan.
Yeah, a private letter. It basically says, "My final game has begun," and tells Ethan, chillingly, "You're more like me than you want to admit."
And the advice he gives, wow. Trust no one, question everything.
And when the time comes to choose between being loved and being respected, choose respect. Love fades, but fear lasts forever. It's practically a villain's creed.
It's Vincent passing the torch, isn't it? Or maybe forcing it on him. And this letter points Ethan towards more secrets.
To a safe deposit box. Inside, a folder labeled insurance and an envelope for Ethan's eyes only.
Insurance. That sounds ominous.
It was ammunition, dirt on everyone. Lily's file, for instance, it detailed her debts, shady loans.
But more than that, right?
Oh, yes. Photographs. Compromising photos with married directors, producers. The source calls it playing the casting couch game. Vincent documented everything, every moral compromise.
He wasn't protecting her. He was collecting leverage. What about Marcus?
Marcus's file was maybe even more devastating. Medical records revealed his wife, Sarah, had suffered multiple miscarriages, 3, actually.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
And Marcus, to cope, he started prescribing himself painkillers, got addicted, functionally addicted to OxyContin, the source says.
And Vincent knew.
Knew and documented it all. The prescription fraud, stealing drugs from the hospital, selling them. Vincent had proof of everything. Again, not concern. Leverage.
This is incredibly dark. What about Celeste?
Celeste's file held the biggest bomb. Vincent had hired PIS. They found she'd been siphoning money for years, millions, into offshore accounts.
Okay, so financial betrayal.
But that wasn't the worst part. Vincent had been in perfect health until Celeste started helping with his heart medication.
Yo!
Yes. Toxicology reports suggested she'd been slowly poisoning him. Digitalis, mimicking heart disease symptoms, weakening his actual heart over time.
So Vincent knew his wife was potentially
murdering him. Ethan's conclusion is stark. My wife had murdered my father.
And there was more. A flash drive.
Yeah, additional material. Video from hidden cameras, audio recordings from tapped phones, more financial records, the full scope of everyone's betrayals.
My God. Vincent basically compiled blackmail material on his entire family.
And then left it all to Ethan with a final challenge. You're holding enough ammunition to destroy them all. The question is, are you Vincent Kane's son, or are you still pretending to be a good man? Choose wisely.
That's the turning point, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Vincent essentially hands him the keys to becoming him, not offering healing, but offering power, retribution, forcing Ethan to look in the mirror.
And Ethan, he chooses. He calls them all back to the estate, not for a family meeting, but a reckoning. He lays it all out. Lily's casting couch deals, Marcus's addiction, the drug theft.
And Celeste.
He plays an audio recording. Celeste talking about accessing Vincent's accounts after his inevitable cardiac event, exposing her, calling her his father's murderer right to her face.
So he uses the information. He takes control.
Completely. He sets up the trust, but it's pure Skinner box stuff, rewards and punishments.
Yeah.
Lily gets money, but only for community college acting classes. Proof required.
Humiliating. And Marcus.
Money only after rehab, monthly drug tests, and he has to work at free clinics. Compelled servitude, almost.
And Celeste, the alleged murderer.
Just enough for basic utilities and taxes on the estate. No personal allowance. Any request for extra funds had to go through Ethan personally, and he made those meetings, quote, as humiliating as possible.
Wow. He's not just managing the money. He's managing them, punishing them.
And it gets more intense. He moves back to Seattle, gets an apartment near the estate, starts showing up unannounced, checking on them, reminding them their lives depend entirely on him.
That's pervasive psychological torture almost.
The impact, devastating. Within 6 months, Lily looks years older. Marcus develops a nervous syncotic. His wife Sarah is terrified, barely speaks. Celeste tries to fight, but Ethan just waves the evidence in her face.
And the truly disturbing part is Ethan's reaction to all this.
He admits it. The darkest part was how much I enjoyed it. He felt the same rush of power Vincent must have felt, calls it intoxicating.
He understands the addiction to control now because he's experiencing it. He didn't just inherit money, he inherited the mindset.
Which leads us to the ultimate price. To Lily. About a year later, she gets a real acting job. A legitimate theater role. Her dream.
But it violates the trust rules, right?
Yeah,
the community college clause.
Exactly. So she goes to Ethan, she begs him, because I'm your sister. Because you love me.
And Ethan.
He has this cold realization. I didn't love her. I didn't love any of them. His thought, I was Vincent Kane's son after all.
Chilling.
His response to her is brutal. The terms of the trust are clear. You can act or you can eat. Choose.
My God. Any shred of empathy is just gone.
Lily chooses the role. Ethan cuts her off immediately. She lasts 3 months. The play folds. She ends up homeless. Car, then shelters.
Couldn't Marcus help her? Her own brother?
He tried, but Ethan warned him, help Lily and your own payments stop. Marcus had his wife, Sarah, and a baby on the way by then.
So he chose his new family over his sister. The cycle of self-preservation continues.
He did. 6 months later, Lily's found dead. Heroin overdose. In an abandoned building, Ethan's business card was in her wallet.
That detail. Just devastating. How did Ethan react?
At the funeral, he says he waited to feel something. Grief, regret, even relief. But felt nothing. Just a cold calculation about how her death would affect the trust's finances.
That's the ultimate corruption, isn't it?
Yeah.
The complete erosion of humanity. Vincent's final victory wasn't just controlling the money, it was twisting Ethan's soul. Or maybe revealing it.
The family is now, as the source says, broken, scattered, and diminished.
What happens to Marcus and Celeste?
Marcus barely practices medicine, spends his time at the free clinics Ethan requires. He and Sarah are described as too damaged to be proper parents to their daughter. The trauma continues.
And Celeste.
She dwindles away in a small apartment, struggles on the minimal allowance, works as a dental receptionist, avoids Ethan's gaze whenever she sees him.
And Ethan sees all this destruction. He knows he could change things, right?
Yeah, he acknowledges it. I could dissolve the trust, distribute the remaining money equally, and try to rebuild some semblance of family relationships. I could use Vincent's fortune to heal the wounds he created. But I won't. That's his decision.
Why? Why choose to perpetuate it?
His final self-assessment is brutally honest, because the truth is, I like being Vincent Kane's son. I like the power, the control, the way people fear me.
Wow.
He continues, maybe that makes me a monster. Maybe I'm exactly as poisonous as the man who raised me, but at least I'm honest about it. Vincent would be proud.
A truly chilling end. He embraces the identity he once rejected.
Yeah. So this deep dive into blood money, it just leaves you with this stark picture of how wealth and power, used maliciously, can totally unravel people, not just a family, but an individual's entire moral core. Ethan's journey. He doesn't break the cycle. He becomes its most potent, maybe its final expression.
And connecting it back, it really makes you think, doesn't it? How much are we shaped by what we inherit, financially, emotionally, psychologically? And when faced with that kind of power, that opportunity for control or for healing, what choices do we make? It forces reflection on the real cost of power and how seductive control can be.
So thinking about the Calane family's poisonous legacy, what does it mean for you listening? Where do you see echoes of the past, maybe good or bad, shaping your own present? And that final question Vincent posed, maybe it applies more broadly. If you had ultimate control, would you choose love, respect, or, like Ethan, something far darker? Thank you for joining us for this pretty intense deep dive. Hope it gave you something to think about. We'll be back soon with more sources to unpack. Until then, keep digging deeper.